welcome to the deep dive. We have pulled together just an extraordinary stack of sources today. Everything from personal tragedies in war zones and massive state corruption to, well, the global battle over climate finance and even a 700-year-old founding myth.
It's a real dive into global contrasts.
It is. And our mission is simple. Cut through the noise, synthesize these stories, and give you the insight you need fast.
Exactly. We're not just reciting headlines here, we're connecting these events, showing how, macro-level policies really intersect with individual survival.
And why a scandal in Kyiv matters just as much as a health emergency in Ethiopia.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to begin with immense human cost of enduring conflict. We're focusing on the story of Yasser and Wajiha al-Galayini in Gaza.
And their life, it started so beautifully. They met at a wedding Yasser was catering back in January 2013.
And now we have to jump ahead to the extreme upheaval they've faced since October 7th, 2023.
What struck me immediately just reading their story is the complete erosion of normalcy. Wajiha was already struggling with thyroid cancer.
Right.
She needed this specialized radioactive iodine therapy in Cairo, which was, simply unavailable in Gaza. So that instability was already there.
And then it was shattered.
Completely shattered on October 7th. Yasser recalls his son, Amar, all ready for school, and then the day is just instantly canceled by the sound of explosions.
Their first evacuation order came just 6 days later, October 13th. And Yasser's simple statement, "We left everything behind," it just says so much.
It does, but the logistical reality of what followed is where you really see the system failure.
How so?
Well, they sought shelter in Nusrat, in a relative's home, and that home quickly became sort of a temporary barracks.
For how many people?
Over 100. Survival just devolved into a battle for basics. They were cooking on camp stoves, baking bread in old clay ovens, struggling without electricity, without medicine.
Unimaginable.
And then, just days later, the unimaginable happened. On October 18th, Wajiha's family home was targeted. 18 relatives were killed, including her parents, her sister, and her brother.
And the financial cost of just trying to find some stability, it became just ludicrous.
Oh, absolutely. By early 2024, they had to sell their car.
Just to afford rent.
For rent on a tiny apartment in Rafah. But getting out of the territory entirely was, well, a non-starter for them.
Why was that?
The price of escape. It just defined all their options. Yasser's mother and sister, they only managed to cross into Cairo because they could pay an Egyptian broker.
And the price was?
$5,000, or about 4,300 euros each. Yasser just couldn't afford the nearly $15,000 for his family.
$5,000 each. Just to cross a border after you've already lost everything. That logistical hurdle is almost as punishing as the physical danger.
It creates these impossible choices, Wajiha was actually permitted to leave alone for her medical treatment.
But she refused.
She refused. She told Yasser, "I have no life without you. If I die, I want to die among you." So they were forced into this constant, exhausting flux.
Moving from place to place.
Nusrat, Mawasi, Rafah, back toward Gaza City, then Deir al-Balah, and back again. Just constant movement.
And on top of all of that, we see this severe economic exploitation hitting them.
Yeah, that part is brutal. During the famine in Ramadan, a single kilogram of flour skyrocketed to $30.
$30?
And even when relatives outside managed to wire the money, Yasser reported commissions of up to 40% just to get his hands on it.
It's a whole infrastructure of necessity and exploitation.
What's fascinating here is, despite all of this, the family's attempt to maintain some kind of normalcy.
How did they do that?
Well, you see these attempts to celebrate birthdays, baking simple cakes. As Yasser said, holding on to hope was a necessity. It was really the only thing they could control.
From that crisis of survival in Gaza, let's pivot to a different kind of crisis. This one is a crisis of accountability, and it's shaking Ukraine. We're talking about the largest corruption scandal since the full-scale invasion in 2022. It involves the alleged embezzlement of $100 million.
Or about 86 million euros,
yeah.
From state energy companies. And this investigation, it was handled by NAB Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau.
And what did they find?
They exposed this chilling mechanism, a kickback scheme, between 10 and 15% reportedly demanded from contractors of Energoatom.
And Energoatom is the state nuclear company. It supplies half the country's power.
Exactly. But the most egregious detail, the part that's just stunning, is that some of these contracts were for building protective structures
Protective structure.
designed to shield critical energy infrastructure from Russian missile strikes.
So they were literally stealing money that was meant to save lives and keep the power on.
The audacity is remarkable. Investigators named a man, Timur Mindish, as the alleged mastermind. And he is deeply connected to the power structure.
How so?
He's a former business partner of President Zelenskyy himself. They co-owned the Kvartal 95 production company.
So he's not just some random operator. He is an insider.
A deep insider. Anti-corruption advocates describe him as a shadow controller of the energy sector. And the evidence, well, it includes 1,000 hours of wiretaps.
1,000 hours.
Showing his significant influence even over the former energy minister, Herman Holychenko.
So what was the fallout from all this?
Mindich has reportedly fled the country. The scandal led directly to the resignations of two ministers, energy ministers Svetlana Grinchuk and Justice Minister Herman Holychenko.
And President Zelensky's response?
A full overhaul has been announced. A complete audit of financial activities, renewal of management at several key state enterprises.
And we should clarify what those enterprises are, because they are the backbone of Ukraine's infrastructure.
Absolutely. We're talking Energoatom, which we mentioned, but also Ukrhydroenergo, which is hydroelectric power, and Naftogaz, the massive state oil and gas monopoly.
So this isn't just firing a few managers. This is restructuring the entire energy backbone of a nation at war.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it just underscores that constant tension. You know, fighting an external enemy while also fighting internal rot. The need for justice is non-negotiable.
That focus on governance and infrastructure is actually a perfect bridge to our next topic. The interconnectedness of climate change, finance, and land rights in Brazil, looking ahead to COP30.
Right, and COP30, for anyone unfamiliar, is the 30th big global climate summit. And the core argument from Brazilian Minister Sonia Guajajara is, well, it's groundbreaking.
Which is what?
That you cannot tackle the climate crisis without addressing human rights. She insists the global community has to formally recognize the demarcation of indigenous lands as an essential climate solution.
And why is that so critical right now?
Because the pressure on those lands is just immense. The energy transition requires huge amounts of critical minerals, right?
For batteries, for all the green tech.
Exactly. And mining interests are pushing to exploit those deposits. Meanwhile, illegal gold mining continues, contaminating rivers like the Tapajós with mercury.
And Congress in Brazil is not helping.
Not at all. It's dominated by agribusiness and mining lobbies, and they're actively pushing for more exploration, even threatening protected Yanomami territory.
It sounds like the environment and indigenous communities are caught.
Yeah.
Caught between, old school exploitation and the so-called green needs of the future.
That is the exact dilemma, and this is where finance has to get creative. So enter the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, or TFF.
What's the idea behind that?
It's a radical concept. It compensates countries for keeping existing forests standing, for preventing degradation.
So it rewards preservation, not just repair. That's a huge distinction.
A crucial distinction. Most forestry finance only applies to areas that have already been deforested.
So what kind of financial muscle is behind this initiative?
Well, the TFFF has secured about $5.5 billion in pledges. Brazil is campaigning for $25 billion in public funds, hoping to leverage that into $100 billion total.
But the politics are tricky.
Very tricky. The UK, which actually co-designed the facility, it was even shortlisted for Prince William's Earthshot Prize. They surprisingly chose not to be an initial investor.
And that caused some friction.
It caused real diplomatic cooling between London and Brasilia. And then you have major players like China.
What's their position?
They expressed support, but they wouldn't quantify a financial commitment. And this is rooted in a really long-held position that, the rich industrialized nations who caused the problem should bear the cost.
So the TFFF is forcing this global equity debate right to the forefront.
Exactly.
Moving from the future of global governance, let's look back. Let's look at two powerful examples of how symbols and narratives can endure or be manipulated.
Right.
And we'll start with a piece of cultural history that is just stunning in its tenacity.
What's fascinating here is the sheer commitment behind the Mexica founding myth. The god Huitzilopochtli told the Mexica people to build their city where they saw a divine sign.
An eagle on a cactus, devouring a serpent.
Exactly. But how long do you think they searched for this omen?
I have no idea.
175 years.
Wow.
Think about that. Almost 2 centuries of wandering before they finally found the sign and established Tenochtitlan in 1325, right where Mexico City is today.
And that image became Mexico's national symbol. Its resilience is incredible, even surviving the European conquest.
Absolutely. When Cortez conquered the city, he literally built City Hall using stones from sacred Mexica sites. He was trying to erase their past.
But the symbol survived.
It did. The evangelizers, especially the Jesuits, they recognized its power and they adopted it. They just added the serpent to the image later on.
So they co-opted it.
They did. One historian noted, such was the strength of Mexica culture that the evangelizers sought to adopt it rather than exclude it.
That's a 7th century story of endurance. Now let's contrast that with a very modern, instantaneous crisis of interpretation.
Okay.
The controversy around the BBC's Panorama documentary and how it edited Donald Trump's January 6th speech.
Right. This case is a masterclass in how editing can shift context. The program combined a quote from early in the speech, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol,"
With another one from much later.
from over 50 minutes later, and we fight. We fight like hell.
And by putting those two together, it gives the audience a very clear, unified narrative of incitement.
That's the claim. The BBC accepted that the edit unintentionally created the impression of a single continuous section. They apologized for the manner of the edit.
But not for the reporting itself.
No, they strongly defended their reporting and challenged the basis for a defamation claim.
What were their legal defenses against that?
They cited a few things. The clip was only 12 seconds long. Crucially, they argued they had no U.S. distribution, limiting its reach.
And the most important part,
That political speech itself is so heavily protected under U.S. law that it makes defamation claims exceptionally difficult to prove. It just highlights that knife-edge broadcasters walk every day.
And finally, we have to address a time-critical public health matter. A confirmed outbreak of the Marburg virus.
Yes, this is in the Jinka area of southern Ethiopia.
And this is a critical update because Marburg is one of the deadliest pathogens we know of.
It is. It's similar to Ebola, transmitted via body fluids. And the symptoms are severe. Hemorrhagic fever, bleeding, vomiting, diarrhea.
We know the fatality rate is terrifyingly high.
It ranges dramatically between 25 and 80%. It really depends on the strain and the medical care available.
And this isn't happening in a vacuum. There have been other outbreaks in the region.
Right. We've seen other recent concentrated outbreaks. Tanzania earlier this year, that killed 10 people. Rwanda late last year, that resulted in 15 deaths.
So what makes this Ethiopian outbreak so urgent?
Well, the Jinka area is densely populated and it's geographically challenging, which makes containment very complicated. It relies heavily on rapid public health response.
But there is some reassurance here.
There is. Ethiopian health authorities confirm this very quickly, which suggests an enhanced level of vigilance after these other regional scares. And right now, that's our best hope for containment.
This deep dive has spanned, well, massive territory. From the tenacity of the Al-Ghalayini family in Gaza to the shock waves of a $100 million corruption scandal in Ukraine.
And then to the complexities of climate finance in Brazil, the resilience of an ancient myth, and the pitfalls of modern media editing.
It's a lot.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, all these stories, they really reflect the tension between immediate acute crisis and the long-term quest for stability and identity.
Which brings us back to history. Back to endurance.
Indeed. The story of the Mexica founding myth suggests that powerful symbols and deep cultural truths endure. They often resurface even after they've been seemingly buried by conquest or chaos.
So a provocative thought to leave our listeners with.
Given the constant stream of crises we discussed today, what historical or cultural truth currently buried by all this chaos and information overload do you think will inevitably resurface and become absolutely central to our identity years from now? This is something for you to mull over.
The fantastic and provocative way to end this deep dive. Thank you for joining us.